Seemingly overnight, the global pandemic has put resiliency on the agenda of virtually every company in the world. Businesses of all sizes and types have needed to change operating procedures to cope with the pandemic's risks and to adapt to virtual employees, revised logistics, and supply networks. Something became very apparent amid all of this chaos: the need for an effective operational resilience strategy. To discuss this, I want to welcome back to the program Stephen Boyer, co-founder and CTO of BitSight. We're also joined by Vasan Balasubramanian. He's VP and GM of Risk at ServiceNow. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Yeah. So, Stephen, before we dive in, please remind us what BitSight is all about.
Yeah. So BitSight is the cybersecurity ratings and analytics firm. We help our customers really manage cybersecurity risk and quantify cybersecurity risk across a variety of different applications, from third-party risk management, security performance management, cyber insurance, national cybersecurity, and investment management.
Right. Last time we had you on the show, we talked about third-party risk management, TPRM, and what BitSight's role is there. And Vasan, tell us a bit about ServiceNow.
ServiceNow is an enterprise platform for digital transformation. We're a platform of platforms connecting work across the enterprise, making work easier for everyone. So that is what we do: connect the dots and make work flow better across the enterprise.
All right. So, Stephen and Vasan, in a Gartner survey released earlier in 2021, only 12% of more than, I think it was 1,500 respondents believe that their businesses were highly prepared for the impact of the pandemic, while just 2% of respondents believe their business could continue as normal as we come out of it. What do you think, firstly, about those numbers? And secondly, as you think about the possibility of Omicron and maybe another pandemic, as well as an onslaught of cyber criminal attacks, where does an operational resilience strategy come into play? How important is that? Again, let's start with you, Stephen.
So 12% seems high to me. I don't know how many organizations were truly highly prepared for the coronavirus and its duration. And I think those numbers might be a little high, which is, their business is going to be business as usual, as just about every business has had to adapt in some way or fashion. It's hard to know, and no one's really good at predicting the future, but will we have something similar to this? It's hard to know. But to be prepared in the future, you absolutely had to create a digital transformation strategy. Companies that thrived here were able to adapt and accelerate their digital adoption. McKinsey called it the Great Digital Acceleration, which is 5 years of digital transformation in just a few short months. And so to be ready for the next whatever event is going to happen, organizations are going to have to be able to respond. They're going to have to be able to adapt, which is Gartner calls operational resilience the ability to adapt in times of change or disruption. And I think folks that did it well are coming out well. And if you're thinking about the future, you have to be thinking about how your organization, how your enterprise is set up so you can respond.
And Vasan, from ServiceNow's vantage point, especially as it pertains to the criminal cyber attacks that we've seen heavily this year, and no doubt well into 2022, where do you see this operational resilience strategy come into play?
Operational resilience is really broad, right? So we started off talking about the digital footprint and the expanding digital footprint, more people working at a home to start with. And then we said, well, that means there's just so many more threat vectors, focus on people and their laptops and personal cyber attacks, losing data. So this was a wake-up moment for a lot of people to go, hey, now we're so much more digital, so much more impact from a digital cyber security point of view. Now, let's take a step back. That is a part of it. Because as soon as you took people out of the workplace, there were a whole range of things, from physical security, how do you secure things that are outside the workplace? Supply chain issues, oh my God, right? This was a time where we just realized how much more reliant we are on everything in our supply chain. I mean, we just had to see Costco's run out of toilet paper. And suddenly we said, oh my God, it touches us in every part of our lives. So it wasn't just the cyber part of it, it was everything else. So from ServiceNow point of view, as we looked at it across our customer base, starting from technology to cyber to facilities to supply chain, employees, and how resilient employees are from a mental health point of view, from an engagement point of view, this was just everything across the board. And these are all elements of resilience. Resilience comes not just in making our technology resilient, but our people resilient and our facilities resilient and our supply chain resilient. And doing all of them not in broken up, disparate ways, but in finding ways that connect the dots across all of them, because any one of them can break them.
Holistically. Now, Stephen, one acronym we often hear when we talk about operational resilience is ESG. So that's environmental, social, and governance issues. And I think, Vasant, that's part of your title now too, if I'm not mistaken. So these have become much more popular and top of mind for even investors and consumers alike. But this is a topic I'd argue that a lot of folks just don't know much about. Now, traditionally, when one thinks of ESG, the first thing that comes to mind is carbon emissions and carbon footprints and other environmental impacts. But can you help us understand more about ESG and what it really means as it's tied to operational resilience? And where does cyber risk management come into play here?
So it's a super broad area and topic. So we'll just kind of focus on the cyber side of it. Historically, a lot of people have considered the S and the social side, when you're thinking about privacy and individuals' information getting leaked and potentially targeted for criminals. And there's part of that, which is you have to have governance for that sort of thing, as you're prioritizing health and safety of individuals. But the G or governance side of the ESG is historically been reserved for board composition and those sorts of matters, where we see that governance here from a cybersecurity standpoint of creating an operationally resilient program, quantifying the risks, understanding the supply chain, making sure you have the right people in place. That's going to become more and more important for investors. And BitSight recently announced a partnership with Glass Lewis. If you don't know Glass Lewis, it's one of the largest proxy advisory firms in the world, which advises institutional investors on how to vote on board matters. And they are going to start looking at cybersecurity as a component of those proxy reports. So boards are going to be held accountable for the governance side of the business with respect to cybersecurity. And one last note here, BlackRock, which is a big financial organization, very focused here on ESG, did some research where they explored the differences between ESG indices and non-ESG versions and found that ESG tilted portfolios had outperformed their non-sustainable counterparts. So this is where there's starting to be financial implications here, where organizations that really get this right tend to have better outsized returns.
Vasant, would you like to add to that?
Yeah. So let's look at ESG in the broad, right? As Stephen said, ESG has financial implications. Environmental, social, and governance. If you are a company that does well on these three pillars, you're just a better business, which makes perfect sense, which is why these businesses did well in the longer run. So environmental, obviously, climate, waste, recycle, circular economy, social, people, human rights, and then governance, to all those things that Stephen mentioned. So it is no surprise when you go, hey, here's a company that does well, that's a good steward for the planet. This is a company that actually reuses materials, is smart about how it works with its people and its extended supply chain, and handles its customer data as well, is well governed, and is a resilient business that knows how to make sure that it isn't tripped up by the next pandemic that comes along. It's just going to be a better company. It makes perfect sense that ESG is aligned to business performance, and regulators and investors are looking for it, and more regulators are looking for it. So we are seeing so much interest and excitement from customers across the board looking to connect ESG to cybersecurity, to reporting, to the investor relations, everywhere across the board. Super hot area.
We are talking about operational resilience strategy with Stephen Boyer, co-founder and CTO of BitSight. And we're also joined by Vasant Balasubramanian. He's VP and GM of Risk at ServiceNow. Vasant, in the last decade, we've been exposed not just to the pandemic, but also to other unexpected public health crises. There's been significant protests, and terrorism, climate-related events. So the severe disruptive effects of COVID-19 on, for example, banks' activities have been made identifying, measuring, controlling, and monitoring operational risk at banks more important than ever before, I'd argue, with well-publicized ransomware attacks, as well with, again, cybersecurity readiness has moved from the security team to the boardroom now. So how should business leaders factor cyber risk into their decision making an operational resilience strategy?
Cyber risk is business risk.
Mm-hmm. No distinction.
No distinction, right? I mean, business, to operate our business, digital transformation means so much more of what we do is underpinned by technology. The broader technology footprint that you have, and frankly, in every part of our life, that means more cyber risk. There's a German law about automotive manufacturers where the number of chips and the amount of code, you have like 100 million lines of code in your cars and your trucks that are transporting logistics as well as people, and a hack in there that lets a hacker take over a fleet of cars or trucks in, say, any given country. I mean, the possibilities are endless and scary. So it is no surprise that cybersecurity is such a critical aspect as we move ever more into that more technical future and technology-driven future.
Yeah, no doubt. Stephen?
Yeah, cyber risk is business risk. And so that requires an integrated strategy, right? You can't just stick it on the side and say, okay, this is our cyber risk group. It has to be fully integrated in how you think about the business, from the way the culture works to how you run your own controls to the way you think about that extended enterprise, which is the combination of you and your entire supply chain. So that board needs to make sure that not only they're thinking about how we're doing now, but how we're investing for the future. Mm-hmm. And how do we quantify those risks, and what are those trade-offs going to be, so they can really set the tone and risk tolerance at the top, so that the management team can go and implement, but then report back on that progress. And so resilience is obviously dealing with what you have now, but planning for the future so you can adopt and change with the times. And that's where you have to be investing ahead, right? And that's what's going to have to come from the top, is for them to think about across the entire business. Where are our risks? Where do we see them today? And where do we want to be? How do we quantify those investments to get the ROI, and then hold the teams accountable? Certainly investors are going to be doing that, and boards need to get there as well.
It sounds like more of a proactive rather than a reactive strategy.
Absolutely.
As we wrap up, gentlemen, clearly the pandemic has amplified the importance of ESG issues. Stakeholders want greater transparency on how organizations are managing their ESG risks and integrating them into their business strategy. Any final thoughts on moving forward as we come out of the pandemic? Any takeaways for business leaders listening to this right now? Stephen?
Well, I think we shared the key points. I think is just you want to be thinking ahead here. ESG is only going to become more important, especially as a company that has investors. As investors are starting to account for that, you don't want to be left behind, right? And so you got to be proactive here, addressing these issues and thinking about an integrated risk management approach to whatever systems you need, whatever reporting and programs, so you can get ahead of it and adapt. Because who knows what's coming? All we just know is change is assured.
Vasant?
I'll say two things about ESG. One, ESG is actually about two things. First, it's about better business, and it is about doing better for the planet and for people. So it's about better business, first and foremost. We'll do better business when we are smarter about our people, work better with our people, we treat our customers and their data better, and that's all about doing better business. And second, ESG is about doing better for the planet and for people and everyone all around. Makes perfect sense. So it's a great opportunity to bring two of these elements together and see the markets and regulators reward us for that. So it's a no-brainer. Better business, better for planet. Let's go do it.
All right. ServiceNow.com, BitSight.com to learn more. Stephen and Vasant, thank you so much for your time. Very insightful discussion. And I'm wishing you and yours a very happy and healthy holiday season. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.